you start?
My name is Rene Gonzalez. I'm the morning show executive producer, so I oversee the morning team here on the newscast. I think the first thing when you sit down to write a story, you should think about what's the most important part and what's the newest part. Ideally, most of your lead sentences are going to incorporate some combination of the two. Most important and newest. Newest at the top. After that, you probably want to break it down to the real basics and make sure you have it covered: who, what, when, where, why, how. You want to make sure that that is in your story somehow, all of those elements. Finally, when you're finally crafted it, I think you also want to read it out loud to yourself. You'd be surprised at what you catch when you actually hear it being said out loud. You might notice that you left something out. You might notice something's awkwardly phrased, or it looks better in writing until you actually hear it said and you say, okay, that sounds funky. But I think first and foremost, the lead, then make sure you have all the basics in there, and last, just make sure it kind of sounds right. Lead sentence has to grab the viewer or the audience, whoever's listening, and you want to make sure you have the most up-to-date information at the top, because if it's old, you may not hold their attention, but you want to keep drawing them along the story. But the lead, like, again, has to have the most important part of the story and has to be the newest part.
Is there a balance between you want to make it very dramatic, or sometimes is it going too far?
No, it depends. I think what's the saying? You got to get it. You got to get them in the door at the church before you preach to them. You got to get their attention and hook them somehow. And sometimes, yeah, you can be dramatic. There's a balance there that I think you will pick up as you kind of feel out the appropriateness of a story, and as you do more stories, you will start to kind of learn where that line is. Sometimes it goes very straightforward. Sometimes you have a little bit more leeway to have a little bit more stylistic expression. But yes, I think writing dramatic sometimes can be an effective way to grab somebody's attention.
Okay. And what are some of the common mistakes that young writers make that you see on a day-to-day basis?
Writing in passive voice instead of active voice. Oftentimes, active voice will be stronger and can often be more concise when you actually see how something is worded. The common mistake is we read so much print and online media that those are always written in passive voice. In broadcast, you have to think about it and actually do it and make the transition yourself. Another one would be writing from press releases. They're not always written in the most conversational form, and sometimes you will take phrasing and different parts of the press release and put it into your own writing and make your own writing less conversational. One of the biggest places where that happens is in law enforcement, first responder type press releases, where we fall into the trap of what we call cop speak. They'll start talking about suspect, victim, vehicle, high rate of speed, where people don't talk like that. They'll say the man, the woman, the car, they were going fast. So you try to get away from that cop speak, where the cops have a very technical way of saying things because they want to be extremely accurate, but people don't speak like that in everyday life. So press releases, you always got to go through with your own filter and break it down into conversational terms. Cliches, avoid using them. I think it weakens your writing, it cheapens it a little bit. If you have to, there are certain places where there could be an exception, but use it very rarely. Sometimes they're just overused, and they're kind of throwaway phrases sometimes.
Okay. What's the craziest situation in news that you've ever been involved in? Just like the most hectic, and you've had to write really fast, and things are changing.
Most recently, the wildfires. It's where you throw everything out the window. Where you're going from wall to wall. You lose some of the basic structure of a newscast, and you're just trying to get information out. So your focus is, how do we get information out to viewers? What's the most important information? Is it evacuation notices, addresses, streets that are closed down, live pictures of a specific neighborhood? Everything kind of becomes all about critical information that you have to communicate to the viewer. But that's probably the biggest recent one, where it spreads out over several days. You're working a 16-hour shift, 17-hour shift. You go home for a few hours and come back, maybe even longer. But it's just go, and constant information is coming in. Crews are constantly moving. You're trying to keep people out of danger. and that's where you know your job is the most critical, because you're really trying to help people in not maybe life or death situation, maybe their property's in danger, but that's where what it comes down to at the end of the day is you're trying to get information out to people.